Hi everyone, I hope you guys are all well. It's been I think 2 weeks now since my last video. So my holiday that I had from work is over. I've been back at work for the last 5 days and everything this week, and yeah, it's been weird being back, and I'm being staring at a screen all day and exhausted, but it's what I gotta do. I had my 2 weeks off were lovely. What else has happened? Oh, my Blu-ray player I can't speak, I swear. My Blu-ray player broke, so I've had to buy a new one, and I'm absolutely loving it. It arrived the other day, and I finally ordered my oven after 6 months ago without an oven because of coronavirus, and I had to get electrics sorted in my kitchen, which is all done because that was done last week. I've been able to order an oven, and it's due to be delivered on Tuesday, and I'm so excited. I don't have to eat casseroles and stews and curries anymore. I can put something in an oven and cook it. I bought some oven chips just to celebrate. I know it sounds so silly, but I'm like, oh my god, I haven't had chips for 6 months. I really want some. But anyway, enough about what I've been up to this past week or two. I'm here to talk about the book I have been reading in that time, which I finished about maybe an hour ago, and that is Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg. Now, I think if you haven't seen my announcement video, you wouldn't know that I have adored the film Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe since I was probably about 13, 14. It's one of my mum's favourite films, so she introduced it to me, and I've watched it so many times that I could, I know pretty much chunks of the film off by heart. I absolutely love it, but I never got around to reading the book. And then I think probably about 2 years ago I was watching it, and I just felt like I really needed to buy the book, so I bought the book. It's been sat on my bookshelf, not gotten round to it, so I picked it up and I've read it. So this is the first book by Fanny Flagg that I have read. I know she has a load of other books, but this is the only one of hers that I know of. I don't know if any of her other books were adapted into films that I may have seen, but I have no clue. And because I've only finished it like an hour ago, I haven't had time to research into any other books of hers and such. So if there have been other ones that have been adapted, let me know. If you know, obviously I'm not expecting you to go out and research it. But if you do happen to know off the top of your head, let me know in the comments. But anyway, Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe is a very interesting story because it's not set in one time, as it were. Now, the main the thing that kicks it off, let's put it that way, is there is a woman called Evelyn Couch who goes with her husband Ed to a kind of a home, old day pension home, where her mother-in-law is living, and she doesn't really get on with her mother-in-law. She kind of keeps out of the way whenever they have the visits her mother-in-law is always referred to as Big Mama. So it's Ed, Big Mama, and Evelyn. And so whenever they go for the visits, Evelyn kind of hangs back, and she ends up meeting, I say ends up, she actually, on the first visit that we actually come into contact with in this book, she meets a woman called Mrs. Threadgood, who is also there, Miss Cleo Threadgood, and Evelyn's not in a good place. She's going through kind of a depression. She's constantly eating chocolate bars and stuff like this. She's just in a kind of depressed place, and she's just stuck. And through meeting Mrs. Threadgood, she gets this new lease of life, because Mrs. Threadgood tells her a story about a relative of hers called Idgie Threadgood and Idgie's friendship with Ruth Jameson. Now this goes back to the 1920s and plays out, kind of flipping back and forth throughout the course of this book, all the way to 1986. So Mrs. Threadgood tells Evelyn this story, and it's about how this story impacts her life. But it's also a story about community. So as I said, I mean, it kind of spans from 1920 all the way to 1986. But the thing is that it's not in linear order. So you have a chapter with Evelyn's talking to Mrs. Threadgood about the story where they last kicked off. It will then go to a chapter from 1936 or something. The following chapter will be from 1929, and then the next chapter could be like a newspaper article, or there is actually a neighborhood kind of weekly notice by the Weems. The Weems Weekly is what it's called, and so then you could have an entry from that as well, and then it'll jump back to 1986, and then suddenly you're in 1969. You know, it jumps all over the place. But the reason why it does this is because you are learning about the impact of all of these various events that happen, and the key events is what happened to Frank Bennett and Idgie being accused of his murder. So there's a whole investigation about what happened to Frank Bennett. Now, if you've seen the film but you haven't read this book, you'll know from the film that there is this feeling of love and family and charm about it. There is a certain tone, a certain feel, a certain warmth to that film. And that is exactly the same in the book. The film got that perfectly, but I'll talk about the film in a bit. But I won't, obviously, we'll talk about the book further. But yeah, the film does correct it and puts it in linear order. But what I do absolutely adore about this story, and about the book as well, is that it's not just about Idgie and Ruth and this one event, with the whole what happened to Frank Bennett, who Frank Bennett was, you know, that kind of thing. It is about community. You learn so much from this book about all of these characters going from 1920 through to 1986. We even see some of these characters in 1986 and what they are doing right at that moment, even though, you know, Evelyn knows them as names of stories, and we are actually seeing what they are doing in that moment. It's extraordinary. We learn all through characters' lives. I love the weekly newsletter, the Weems Weekly, written by Dot Weems, and she complains about her husband all the time throughout these newsletters. He's constantly not feeling well. He's constantly got man flu. He's, you know, he's constantly winding her up. But you learn so much about her and him, their relationship, from this weekly newsletter. We don't see them outside of this newsletter, and you learn you learn so much about them. You've got so much heart for them, and then with the final entry, it kind of got me a little choked up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is wow. It's like these characters took on a whole nother level of, they are people to me. I know them. I mean, you could argue that it's because I have known their story since I was about 13, 14. But then at the same time, I didn't, because even though the film captures the book so beautifully and tells the stories in such a wonderful way, it puts stuff in different order. It changes the ending. Only money, but I'll explain that a bit more in a bit. They have people meet who don't meet in the book. They tell people's stories in different ways, and there are characters you meet in the book who you don't meet in the film, like Dot Weems and her husband, and they have become a community in my heart. And every second I just loved it, and suddenly seeing characters in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s of what they are doing, it was a joy. I have known these characters since they were children, and then seeing them throughout the whole of their lives and what they've gone on to do outside of the bubble of Mrs. Threadgood's Whistle Stop Cafe story. It was a joy. It was an absolute joy to read. It's a very easy read as well. So even though it's like 500 pages, a bit of a chunky book, it's actually quite big text and such. And it's quite simply written. There we go, Weems Weekly. There's one of the entries for Weems Weekly, set in Whistle Stop, Alabama. I forgot to say it's set in Alabama. And it's a very easy read. I am definitely, this along with Girl with the Pearl Earring, going to be giving my copies to my mum to borrow and have a read, because I think she will absolutely adore both of those books. I loved every second of it. It's been an absolute joy to read, and especially with this week, because I've been back at work. I haven't really read in the evening because I've been so exhausted catching up with everything. But when I have, and like yesterday and so far today that I've been reading to finish this book, I have just been in that world. I've been totally immersed. I loved all the funny moments, the heartbreaking moments, the shocking moments. And as I said, there are moments that are in this book which aren't played out in the film, which really took me aback, that I didn't know I was going to come across. And yeah, having no knowledge of that was wonderful. I'm going to gush. I know I'm gushing. I'm sorry. But I want to read you a bit. And, where is it? Oh, no, it's the next one. I bookmarked a few pages and I couldn't remember which one I was going to do a reading from. How bad me. I didn't prepare. But I want to read you a bit about Evelyn and how she has been stuck in a rut, and this story is changing her life. And she has made a persona for herself called Tawanda. And it is this powerhouse of a woman that can do anything, who wants justice, who wants to track down anyone who's done a terrible crime and get rid of them because they're not worth, that kind of thing. Tawanda is the embodiment of empowerment, and that's what she wants to be. And so this is her, and she's going to the supermarket on September 13th, 1986. On Saturdays, when Evelyn Couch went shopping, she always drove Ed's big Ford LTD because there was more room, but it was hard to park. So she had been sitting waiting for a parking space at the end for 5 minutes while the old man loaded the groceries into his car, took another 3 minutes to get in, find his keys, and finally back out. Just as she was about to pull in, a slightly battered red Volkswagen came round the corner, shot right into the space she was waiting for. Two skinny, gum-chewing teenage girls wearing cut-off jeans and rubber flip-flops got out and slammed the doors and started to walk right past her. Evelyn rolled down her window and said to one that was in the Elvis Is Not Dead t-shirt, "Excuse me, but I was waiting for that space. You pulled right in front of me." The girl looked at her with a smirk and said, "Let's face it, lady, I'm younger and faster than you are," she said, and her friend flip-flopped into the store in their rubber-thonged shoes. Evelyn was left sitting there, staring at the Volkswagen with the I brake for rednecks bumper sticker on the back. 12 minutes later, the girls and their friend came out just in time to see all four of their hubcads fly across the parking lot as Evelyn crashed into the Volkswagen, backed up, and slammed right into it again. By the time the two hysterical girls had reached the car, Evelyn had almost demolished it. The tall one went berserk, screaming and pulling her hair. "My God, look what you've done! Are you crazy?" Evelyn leant out her window and calmly said, "Let's face it, honey, I'm older than you are and have far more insurance than you do," and drove away. Ed, who worked for an insurance agency, did have plenty of insurance, as it turned out, but he could not understand how she could have run into somebody 6 times by mistake. Evelyn told him to calm down and not make a big deal out of it. Accidents happen all the time. The truth was, she enjoyed wrecking the girl's car too much. Lately, the only time she wasn't angry and the only time she found peace was when she was with Mrs. Threadgood and when she would visit Whistle Stop at night. In her mind, Tawonga was taking over her life, and somewhere, deep down, a tiny alarm bell sounded, and she knew she was in sure danger of going over the edge and never coming back. I just love the way that Fanny writes how Evelyn goes from this timid, overweight, depressed woman who doesn't quite understand her place in the world, all the way to being this powerhouse because of story, because of friendship. It talks about what it means to be friends and community, and it's an absolute joy to read. It didn't make me cry, but I think it's that thing that because I knew the story, I knew what was going to happen, although there were parts, as I said, which I didn't know because it wasn't in the film, but it filled me with joy and comfort. And I think this is going to be one of those books where it's a comfort thing. Like, I have an absolute, like, threadbare, battered copy of The 10th Kingdom, which my mum and dad bought me because I adored the film series, the TV series. And I would literally go to a bookshop, I would grab it, sit down, and I would read a chapter or two. Then obviously we'd leave the shop, and the next week I'd come back and I'd carry on reading. I nearly read the whole book doing that. So my mum and dad bought me a copy. I still have that book. It fills me with comfort and such heart and has such joy to me and memories. And I think Fried Green Tomatoes is one of those other books that I'm not going to take off my bookshelf anytime soon, and could end up being read over and over again, and this could become threadbare and crazy, but I love it. I absolutely love the characters. I love the way they were portrayed. I love the tone. I love the heart of it. I loved, even though it's, not in linear order and such, I loved learning what we learned about characters, the way that we learned them. I think it's beautifully written. So, would I read this again? Hell yes. Would I read more of Fanny's books? I think I'd definitely look into them. Certainly. If they have the same charm and wit and intelligence and depth as this book does, I think the rest are going to be awesome as well. And would I recommend it to anyone? Yes, I certainly would. I'd say go out, get a copy, read it, and enjoy. So, as for the film, of course, I've got a DVD copy because I love this film so much. So, Evelyn is played by Kathy Bates, and Mrs. Threadgood, who she visits in the nursing home, is played by Jessica Tandy. And they are absolutely wonderful in these roles. Now, as I said, the film, now that I've read the book, I know that it makes characters, some characters meet who don't meet in the book. It puts it in linear order, of course, and it changes the ending. Only slightly. I do kind of prefer the film ending, but I understand why the book had the ending that it did for Evelyn, but by ending the film the way they do, by changing the ending, I'm trying to say this without giving anything away, they give Evelyn something else, which going forward I think is great for her. But yes, I have to say I do kind of prefer the film ending, but I still love the book ending. So there we go. So I do prefer the film ending out of the two of them, but both of them are brilliant. So there we go. So the Iggy is played by Mary Stuart Matheson, and Ruth is played by Mary Louise Parker. I couldn't think the names of the other ladies, so that's Iggy and that's Ruth there. And it beautifully beautifully depicts the story of Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Cafe. If you don't read the book and you see the film, you're not going to be disappointed. I think, as I said, you get the exact same tone, the same power of this friendship and what it means to them, the same joys, the same sorrows, the same intrigues, the same mystery of what happened with Frank Bennett. And the cast are truly wonderful. Wonderfully put together, and as I said, I've watched it so many times I could like say big chunks of it off by heart. Strongly recommend the film as well. Okay, so there are my thoughts on Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. I'll give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you. I'll let you decide. I've already filmed my announcement video. I'm actually uploading that first because it's going to be shorter and my broadband's been really annoying. So I will try and get this uploaded today, which is Sunday as well. But if not, it might have to be on Monday. I'll just see what my broadband decides to do because my broadband's already annoying. But anyway, I will be back with the thoughts of the next book that I'm reading, which is in the coming up. All right, guys, bye.